It's all about Instagram followers and likes and comments. It's the most accepted and effective way of flashing. It's no surprise that for the last 10 years, the dating process has been changing dramatically. The experience of going out and meeting someone out there, someone that you can settle down with, has been skewed totally. And there are no clear winners in that game, even though some guys claim that it has become unfair and that finding a match is almost impossible. And that claim might be true, depending on how you look at it. If you are an average guy living with this idealistic notion that we had in 50s, 60s, that is only required by you to get a job, build a house, and a decent woman will step into your life whenever you are ready, well, we can throw that fantasy out of the window, because clearly that romanticized picture doesn't work anymore, even though the living situation has improved exponentially, at least in the westernized part of the world. As a man, you have to become even more so courageous than before. That includes everything in your life. So in this video, I would like to draw parallels between dating and living a fulfilling life. Correlates to each other very much close, even closer than you could imagine.
Men use the image of female perfection to motivate themselves. And that's exactly right. That's precisely what they do. You see that in the Tom Sawyer story. So Tom Sawyer is about 12 years old, and he's still hanging around with his friends like Huck Finn. And this girl moves across the street, Becky, and she comes out and he's struck by her for the first time in his life. Something's changed. And the first thing he does is hop up on a picket fence and show off and balance in front of her. And he's saying, well, look at me, look at me. He's like the male bowerbird building something beautiful so the female will approve of it. And it's...
Yeah, I remember those days, long before internet took over our lives. Even though I was a very restricted child anyway, I could observe such behavior in others, in my brother, in my friends. Whenever a beautiful girl, entered a room, they got all flustered and warm and blood pumping into their faces, making their cheeks red. They wanted to show off. They wanted the girls to like them. Thinking back now, it was a very natural, subconscious behavior. Nothing that they pondered over. Nothing that they have been taught about. Something that biology dictated for them to do. Sometimes girls acknowledged them, some other times not. And those guys who weren't popular with girls, over time accumulated this sense of rejection, which made it even harder in their mature adult life to approach women, to make themselves acquainted, and eventually go on a date. But those days are long gone. Dating doesn't happen in similar way. That old-fashioned way of showing off things, showing off status, has been transferred into the digital space. It's all about Instagram followers and likes and comments. It's the most accepted and effective way of flashing.
It's motivation, you know, and that's something that I think modern women don't really understand about men. They don't understand that, at least to the degree that males are uncorrupted and not bitter because of being rejected, they're doing everything they can to kneel before the eternal image of the feminine and try to make themselves worthy. That's the chivalry story, right? That's what you should encourage in your partner.
Those were good old days, Mr. Peterson. Doesn't work like that. If you're living in a small village and your crush is well known by the whole population, don't make the mistake by thinking that you don't have any competition. Even though there's only 200 people living in the neighborhood, your competition acts through the digital space. And that worshipping of the woman of your dreams is now having the total opposite effect on the females. You will be more lucky with women by being more restrictive, stoic, and not showing off your affection to the ones that you find attractive. But yes, in some ways I agree with Peterson on the notion that women don't understand that everything we do is in order to get access to the female domain. Because why, children? That's right, it's all about procreation.
So out of chaos emerges this first form. It's the feminine form. It's partly the form that represents novelty as such. So, and on one hand it's promise, on the other hand it's threat. That you wouldn't believe, and I don't know, because I don't understand the situation with women as well as I understand the situation with men, obviously, being a man. But I don't know if women have any idea how paralyzing they are to, especially young men. A very large number of my clinical clients, but also young men I've talked to in general, are absolutely terrified of women because they're terrified of being rejected.
This daunting feeling of fear for women pursues us long into the older age. Some women think that the older we get, the more mature we get, we should be having easier time to approach women and not be shy. And by that time have learned abilities to hold conversation, show empathy, being able to lead others. But the truth of the matter, that same trauma that we had in childhood doesn't disappear because we don't deal with it. We are constantly bombarded by this idea that if we get an education, have a nice job, acquire some resources, find a meaning, that women will find us attractive, which is not the case anymore because the need in provisioning in women has been solved by the good times that we're living in. Women have their own careers, own money, own houses. That part of the bargain doesn't interest them anymore. So the guys have to come up with something more clever, something more deeper, more basic that defines manhood, which is what women are attracted towards. And my point with the whole premise of this, same qualities are necessary in order to succeed in life, regardless of however you define success. The one attribute that is lacking in many of us is courage. And courage is not defined by being fearless.
And the terror exists in precise proportion to the attraction to the woman, which is a horrible paradoxical situation to be in. It's often why men make such fools of themselves in front of women that they're attracted to. It's because, first of all, they don't see the woman that they're attracted to. Because what the hell do they know about her? They don't see her as an individual. They see her as the manifestation of a judgmental ideal. And then it's only in establishing the relationship with the actual woman that they can start differentiating between the judgmental ideal and the actual individual woman. And that also requires a sacrifice.
So the point I'm trying to make with courageousness is that it's not about being fearless. It's about taking action in spite of your fears. Dating, love, sexuality, intimacy is something that is very deep rooted within us. And it's one thing that we don't want to jeopardize, that we don't want to compromise. Sure, getting a career and having a fancy life is okay and fun and maybe will open a lot of other doors, but it's not necessary for a good life. So in that sense, material wealth is optional, but love, affection, procreation is something that all men, regardless of background and status, want and desire. And as men and women become detached from each other, because so many women desire so few men, because they seek up the best of the best, which is understandable, a lot of people in the world become lonely. Even though women have a lot of access to men, very few of them meet their standards for the long run. So as the time passes, they become very sad and depressed, just because the kind of men they have been promised are very few and rare, and are not ready to be settled down. If you are getting paralyzed by a mere thought of approaching women, you should be having the same feeling towards the life in general. In the same sense, why are you afraid for going things that you wish and desire? Besides women, because of the fears, of course. And this where the courageousness has to enter your life.
And the sacrifice is, you never can have an ideal woman. So to have a relationship with any woman, you have to sacrifice the relationship with the ideal woman, and you have to see the individual woman and separate her from the ideal. And that's the same thing that happens to the hero in Sleeping Beauty, right? He sees the evil queen who actually turns into the dragon of chaos, and it's not until he can defeat her that he can establish a relationship with the actual princess. And that's exactly the case.
And of course, the way you beat your fears is by facing them. Afraid of women? Go and approach them. Afraid of not being accepted? Become better version of yourself. Afraid of having monotonous 9-to-5 life? Go out there and pave your own path. So the biggest difference between the courageous and the coward ones is the ability to face their fears.
I had one of my clients who ran this men's group, which was quite interesting. One of the things they had the initiates do, which was very intelligent, was to go out and ask 50 women in one day for their phone numbers. Why? Politely, properly, you know. It was a game, but it wasn't a stupid game. And the idea was, get over your fear of rejection. And how do you do that? By encountering it continually and continually and continually, so that you're no longer paralyzed by this.
Ask yourself, why are you afraid of rejection? Deeply and very consciously contemplate about it, and you will realize that at the end of that thought thread there lies nothing. Also, speaking about the one, I have a video about the myth of having the one. You can check that video here. How do you deal with your fears? And what is the best advice you can give to youngsters? Tell me in the commentary section. But for now, Hossein, out.